G'day and welcome back to the Fun Factory. I'm going to give a broad overview of the steps that we take to make a plane. There are 5 steps, basic steps, that we use to make a plane, and these are very broad categories. The first one is to choose your plane, and that sounds a bit, flippant, but I'll expand later on. There is so much in deciding which one and why and so on. So you choose your plane. So the second step is we draw it up, and that's not pen and paper. Everything's done on the computer on 3D CAD. We use a program called Rhino 3D. So it's drawn and designed on the computer. The third step is we make molds of all the different parts, and there can be dozens and dozens of molds that go into making a plane. Right. That's a mold. And you're thinking, oh, people go, what's a mold? So a fiberglass mold, that's a fin for a P-38 Lightning. So you make your molds, make all your parts. Then step 4 is we lay up into these molds. So we paint straight into the molds, put your colour scheme in, put your cloth and your resin in, back it down, you join these bits up, and then you open the molds and you pop them out. So out of the mold, after you've laid them up, that comes a finished piece. That's what's come out of that mold. That's the fin for the Lightning. Then you've got all these pieces that you've laid up and popped out of your molds. The 5th step is the fit out, and a lot of you know the fit out. The fit out is just basically put your motor, your radio, your servos, etc., and you make something that flies from these bits. So those are the 5 very, very broad basic steps that we use to make a plane. So when I said, choose your plane, you have a bucket list, and we are gradually ticking off the bucket list. The most recent one that we've made is the 5th scale P51 Mustang. That's got a true laminar flow wing. We'll talk more about that when we lay the wing up. We've got a true 5th scale F4U Corsair, and the first mould that we made that flies is the P47 Thunderbolts, an 84-inch. That thing's been around for about, I reckon it's about, must be nearly 10 years now. I think we've pulled something like 14 fuses, 14 planes out of the moulds, and every time we make one we go, oh, we'll never use those again. Never use those old moulds again. It's a little bit difficult to use. Nothing fits really well because it was the first one and it was a huge learning curve. But the thing is, it's just so fabulous that it's still going. And this is the point that, 10 years later, we've still got friends even to this day that are, coming around, and we're going to help them, make their own Thunderbolt out of these molds. So when we choose a subject, you think, this thing could be around for years, and we're going to be investing a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of blood, sweat and tears that goes into that, and the frustration sometimes that goes into making the molds. So all the things to consider. Well, first of all, you've got to love it. You've got to have something that's going to enthuse us and keep us going, and really passionate about it. Things to consider. You look at the size of what we want to make, and it's, is that thing even going to fit in our trailer? Can we lift it? Can I lift it on my own, or am I going to need, people to help me? Is it one of those awkward things that you need, someone to help you out at the field? You can't even get it out of your trailer or the back of your car without someone else hopping on the other end. Is it practical? What sort of stand do you need? How do you get into that? There's so much just in those really basic practical things. And then the size of it, you start drawing up what undercarriage is available. Will that even fit into the wing section? or do you design it around a motor? You've got a particular motor, and will that fit inside the cowl? Or, you know, so all those considerations, heaps of considerations. And then the design criteria, what wing section, how much washout, you know, and so on. All these things we will elaborate on in future videos. I don't want to make this really long-winded, boring video where I'm just raving on for hours. So we're going to try and keep these reasonably concise and just elaborate on the various parts in the future. So we've chosen the model, and in this case at the moment it's the P38 Lightning. So the reference material for this, we've discovered a absolutely magic site, and it's called aircorpslibrary.com, and it's an accumulation of dozens, well maybe not dozens, but it's at least a dozen of warbirds, Second World War warbirds, all the factory drawings, the actual microfiche files that they're accumulating into this one library. I think we pay about $50 a year for a subscription to have access to this. It is absolutely fantastic. It doesn't have to be factory drawings. You can take a 3-view, you can take a plan, you can even just take someone's plan. The main thing is to create your 3D model. We have the benefit of using the AirCorp library now. So all the detail that we've looked at for years, looked for, you know, what panel lines, where are they, what are the fixtures, what are the size rivets. It starts to get really anal, like, oh, what size rivets do you use? But that's what makes it so interesting. That's what makes the finished product not look like we used to make them, just with, you know, sand it all flat, glass it, and just put little blobs of glue on. This is okay, so it's got Zeus plugs, it's got 3mm rivets here, it's got 6mm, you know, plugs in there. And because you've got the actual reference, you can create something that starts to look really realistic, and that's what we love to do. So yeah, we like to get really, I suppose it's called anal, but it's just a process that's developed over the years. So with the benefit of the AirCorp's library, you've got this, we've got this amazing reference source. So we're able to start to create these things so that we can put panels where they're meant to be in the hatches. When we talk about different panels, it's like, listen, you can see the separate panels, you can see the hatches, you can see the rivet lines. That's what we're trying to achieve. So once it's drawn up, once this master model is drawn up, it's used for everything. Everything is taken from this master model, including the paint masks. If you want to put an insignia onto the fuselage, you can go back to your master model and you can scale it to the exact size. Oh, that's meant to fit, you know, between here and here, and it fits between this door and, you know, this far in front of the tailplane, and so on. So the master drawing is absolutely critical to the whole process. Once we've laid up the mold, the internals, everything, all the spars, everything that you hang your undercarriage off, things that you hang your surfaces off, your control surfaces. So from this one 3D model, you extract the parts that you want to make, and then when you make the parts, they all fit back together. So that's how we get the, you know, the nice fit of things, by having a consistent 3D model. So you're going to make your mold. We said the next step is to make a mold. You need something to make the mold over, and we basically call this a plug. So you have a mold, but what has that been molded off? So a plug. In the past we've used, you know, various different things, and we've recently discovered 3D printing is just a fantastic way to create shapes, base shapes. You can get really fine, thin trailing edges. You can create complex shapes in 3D printing that would be really difficult to make other than, you know, hand carving or something, and you can get really accurate dimensions 3D printing. So as the base plug, why don't you just, you know, 3D print and then mold off that? Because the surface it's not smooth enough. You see the little individual layers. Well, it looks a bit like, you know, sedimentary rock because you see the layers. So we start with it's absolutely fantastic to create the base shape, and then onto that, so this is the fin of the P38. Now that's too big to fit onto the bed of the printer on its own, so it's printed side by side, and then can you see the holes in that? That's how they align. So they come off the bed of the printer, and those holes then align other way. This is the dyslexic one doing it. So they come off the printer, and those holes align it like that, and just peg that in. So there you've got the start of a structure, you've got the shape, and then onto that we want to put the detail that we're after. We want the panels. So again, back to your drawing, extract the shapes for the panels and where the rivets go. Close, see the rivet detail. You've got the hatches. So you pull those shapes out, and then we make the panels out of this, it's called styrene. Some people, it's actually called HIPS, which is high impact polystyrene. We used to use something else, but we find that the detail on this is nicer. So we have a CNC router, which we have created a tool for embossing all the rivets into it, cut the panels out, and then the panels get stuck onto the 3D print, like that. So that plug is then ready to mold. You wax the mold. Sorry, you wax the plug up and create the mold. Make a mold over the top of it. So you make one side of the mold and turn it over. Make the other side, and then pull them apart. That doesn't get used anymore. That's basically a throwaway. So the plug's being used. So the mold comes out, and all the detail is in the mold. And I mean every bit of detail, every little scratch that you happen to leave in there, shows up in the mold. Okay, so you've got your mold of the part that you want to make. So the layup process, we start with painting in the mold. So any masking that requires any lettering or whatever, so insignias, invasion stripes, all that, again it's back to the master model. We pull out, we draw up and then pull out the shapes, cut them on a vinyl cutter. They're our masks, so we cut those masks, and then they get stuck into the mold. They get painted. This is painting in the mold takes a bit of getting your head round, because it's backwards, and it's really weird because you have to think, well, to start with, all your lettering goes down backwards, and yep, I've put it in the wrong way, and you pull it out and it's like, that letter was in the wrong way. So everything's in reverse, and future videos will be showing how we do it. So as I said, this is just an overview. The beauty of it is, if you were going to paint something into your mold, if there are several colours, for example on the Mustang we might have 6 colours that are going to go into it. You've got black and white for the invasion stripes, you've got the insignia, we've got the insignia blue, we've got a yellow nose on them, and so on. You've got all these different colours. you mask them off. But the beauty is, once you've put down one particular colour, that you don't have to mark. That's what's going to show on the outside. So when you do the next colour, you can spray all over the back of it, and it doesn't matter. So it looks an absolute dog's breakfast looking inside the mould. But then when you pop it out, it comes out like this. It's just brilliant. Yet inside the mould, that just looks a nightmare. It is a bit hard to explain it and understand it. So when we're doing a piece, yeah, you'll get the idea. And it's just a fabulous way to do it. Because if I was trying to do this on the outside, I'd have to mask one. Well, you've probably done it, but one colour, and then once you've sprayed a colour, that then has to be masked off so you can do the next one, and so on. Whereas in the mould, you spray over the top of it, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's the painting. You get all your detail and all your colours painted up in the mould. And then the layup. What's a layup? Well, we use fiberglass cloth. We just use these bags of Hobby King 50 gram, or they call it 48 gram. So it's 48 gram or 50 gram cloth from Hobby King. We've tried all the fancy stuff, $20 a metre cloth and all the rest of it. This stuff just works, and it's about $2 a bag. So we put in a layer of cloth, and because it's a composite, we use a core. Now the core that we use is cork. It's 1mm core cork. I don't know if you can see. I hold that up to the light. You probably can't see the holes through it. You need to shine a torch. I can actually see little holes through it, and it's super thin. You can see how flexible it is. It's really, really light, and because it's so flexible and drapeable, it is just fantastic for, you know, laying up into curves. It just fits really beautifully. It lays into there nicely. So we have the cloth that goes down. We put the cork down on top of it, then we put another layer of cloth over the top. So the cork is sandwiched between two layers of fiberglass cloth. It's all wet out with epoxy resin, so that's all laid down into your mould. Then we vac bag it, we vac it down, which means that the whole part that's all laid up gets put inside a plastic bag, sealed up and vac down, and that squeezes it all together, squishes it all together, and makes a composite sandwich by just squishing it all together. And that's basically it. So it's all back. Once that comes out of the vacuum, you trim the edges of your mould. Then you put the two parts of the mould together with some joining glue. The two parts get clamped together. You've probably seen pictures on our Facebook page with the moulds like this sitting there with the clamps all around them, so they all clamp down hard. Leave it to dry, leave it to set, take the clamps off, and then you open your moulds out, pop it out, and that's where your piece pops out. That's the really exciting bit, because any mistakes you've made. But the good bit is when it all works, you pop it out and you've got a finished piece. It's super lightweight. It's really, really, really light, but it's strong. I don't mean light and flimsy. It is absolutely solid, and it's a finished piece. Bit of trimming around the trailing edges, and then those pieces all go together to make your plane, but with all this beautiful detail on it. And then, yes, you spent ages making moulds and the rest of it, but then every time you want another one, you just get your moulds out and you spend, you know, the same process. People go, oh, you've got mould, it's easy. It is, it's easier than starting from scratch and getting a knife out, but it still takes us around 100 hours to, you know, make a Mustang or something. So, but yeah, all that beautiful detail is done. You do it once, and yeah, it's just, we love it. It's just a fantastic way to build. So that's the broad picture. that's basically the steps, slightly expanded. And as we do things from now on, we will just, at least you'll have a bit of an idea of what we're doing. So we've got multiple projects going. We've got several molds, as I mentioned. We've got the Thunderbolt, the Mustang, the Corsair, working on the plug making, which is like this for the Lightning. So that's in progress. There's a quarter scale F86 Sabre in the beginning phases of the drawing. So there are multiple projects all going at once. We'll be, you know, making panels, we'll be 3D printing something, we'll be fitting out a shell that's been laid up, and so on. So now that we've given this basic overview, hopefully it won't be too confusing when we just randomly, decide what we're going to make this or make that, because being a hobby, we just, chop and change, and different things take priorities at different times because there are lots of things going on. But anyway, hope you enjoy it, comments, whatever, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.